I'm here to discuss remapping Latinidad, performance cartography of Latino slash O identity in rural Nebraska, comma R. Chavez. And I know I butchered that title with the Latina O. But the first off, the thesis I want to get right out of the way is this essay on the first page. This essay shifts understandings of Latina performativity by emphasizing the importance space makes in producing different kinds of subjects. And what first off, whenever you gotta look at this, you gotta look at Latinidad and performance of cartography. Now, Latinidad, she actually defines as being on page 166, which is the page right after the introductory there, is the creation and performance of Latino/Latina identities that potentially build pan-Latino and Latino or solidarity. So basically sitting there saying, what ultimately constitutes, basically that's kind of like Latin performance, what you define as what, this basically central race thing. Pardon my voice, I'm a bit hoarse. But this whole essay seems to deal with, this sense of pride in Latino or Latina culture, or traditions, I guess would be a more appropriate term, while also trying to conform to the sense of culture of like this white culture, this Americanness that is constantly harped on throughout the entirety of the piece. And then we also got to look at performance cartography, which is basically sitting there stating that space is constantly being readjusted to where there's in-betweens, and it's always constantly being remapped, and there's always a new route that you always find. And it kind of, because cartography basically itself is map making, and you're kind of just creating this space to where you perform yourself to the best of your abilities. And I think it goes on later to say how her grandpa really struggles with I think it's Phyllis, I want to say, how she's like shakes her head at him, and he's like, he gets it and gets what he's saying, but he takes pride in his Americanness, his whiteness, because he doesn't want to sit there and be just identified as a Latino. He wants to be sit there accepted as an American citizen. And actually, you can kind of get that sense of from Chavez as well, because she's there and despises how their brown body, how these beaners, these farmers that come into Nebraska, how they reflect who she actually is. And that falls under this quote here on page 170. Their brown bodies reflected to me everything I did not want to see in myself. Their brown bodies reflected my family's history. Their brown bodies, like a spotlight, highlighted our brownness to the whites. We had learned to relate in the ways that concealed our otherness from them. Those parts of me now seemed vulnerably naked in front of everyone's eyes. And it's kind of like sitting there saying, well, this is who you are, right? This is why she gets so upset, and why in another story, this story was kind of fun to me, how her grandma actually ends up punching this chick because she calls her a Mexican. First of all, that's funny, because I can imagine just this chick just punching another girl just for calling someone else a Mexican, for calling her Mexican. But this sense of pride that they take in not being identified as Mexican, which you think would be a bit weird, but in their own sense, it's their own style of pride. And this again, it falls back to this whole sense of space, is that they take pride in their traditions. Because he goes on to say later on in the essay or article that she still eats, like standard Mexican food, still these standard traditions. This just traditions within a set identity that she's constituting as Americanness or whiteness. She's not banishing or neglecting her Latin culture. It's just she is constituting herself in this mindset that she is American. And it's like, I think it's the whole, I guess, thing in the story is that she's creating a space of Americanness, and how she chooses to perform as how she does traditions and how she performs as a Latin, but she's still American. She's not identifying as Latino or Latina, I guess. And another quote that I found really important, I think it was towards the end, if I can find it, is on 176. When one radically changes space by leaving a physical place, new knowledge gets produced about the previous space. So, again, this whole cartography thing is, it expounds on itself, and as she's realizing, what she sees, this sense of pride in her culture, it's just constantly evolving and sitting there, and it's not just black and white as it seems. And then last but not least, the final quote I want to use is, and this one just really rang true, is that finding spaces that honor unity without erasing differences is difficult when you have communities as heterogeneous as that fall under the umbrella term Latino or Latina. That there's no set way to define your race. Is that it's always as ambiguous as that how you choose to perform in said space. I think that's the whole point of this essay is to sit there and say that, you can sit there and have these set traditions, but how you choose to perform is based on where you sit in said space and whether or not you sit between the lines and how well you disidentify with and assimilate to certain aspects of culture. And, well, that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening.